preparing for a job interview in English and you feel nervous, you're in the right place. This complete lesson gives you structures, expressions, and tips to do well in your job interview in English. Hi, I'm your English coach, Christina, and welcome to Speak English with Christina, the best place to become more confident in business English step by step. In this lesson, you'll learn how to clearly and correctly answer essential questions for a job interview in English. Tell me about yourself. Why should we hire you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Some tips for making small talk before the interview so you relax the atmosphere and make a good connection with the recruiter. And then also some tips on how to structure any job interview question to make it clear and concise. It's a long lesson, but it's a complete one. And if you watch it until the end, I guarantee you that you will be more prepared and you'll feel more confident about your job interview in English. All right, let's go. Tell me about yourself. It's probably the most common job interview question. Unfortunately, most people kill it with a boring answer. In a job interview in English, how can you respond to "tell me about yourself" with an answer that will impress the recruiter, both with your English skills and with the answer that you provide? So, Mr. Dumont, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hello, my name is Jean-Claude. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I'm 34 years old and I live in Grenoble and I work at the co-work company. I studied at the Grenoble Ecole of Management. I have my diploma in 2004 and I'm a sales manager in 3 years, and before I was
Okay, let's continue to the next question.
Okay.
When the interviewer says, "tell me about yourself," they want your story. So don't just recite your resume, tell them a story. You may think that this is too difficult for your level in English, but it's not as hard as it sounds. The language doesn't have to be very advanced, and the elements of your story just need to be well organized. You don't have to include every single detail of your career, just enough to show that you're a person and a professional. Here's a basic structure that you can follow. First, say something about your past. Then add an emotion or some tension. Next, include an action and how it had an impact on your life. You can include a second action and how it impacted your life also. Then say how or why you arrived in your current situation. Next, say something about the opportunity that this job offers. And finally, make a connection between the future opportunity and your past experience. The interviewer should be able to predict the next chapter in your story, which ideally includes you working at their company. Of course, you should adapt your story to the job you're interviewing for. Let's look at a few examples. Feel free to pause this video if you want to read the examples slowly or note any useful language. Here's an example of a job in marketing. I grew up in a small French town in the Alps. When I finished high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in a big company, but that was all. I saw a lot of ads for a business school and thought it could help me decide what career I wanted and then get a good job. So I enrolled in a business program. I decided to continue a career in marketing because I realized that marketing is a form of communication. The message of that business school ad convinced me to take action. It helped me to arrive where I am today. That's why I'm excited about the possibility to work with you. I want to show people how your products make their lives easier. The right ad with the right message can make a difference. and I want to be a part of that. Now, here's an example of a job from the software industry. When I was a kid, I loved playing with computers. My friends and I even tried to create our own software program, but we didn't have enough knowledge at the time. To learn more about software and IT, I worked at several companies on several different projects. It was fascinating. The things I learned helped me advance and become a project manager in a small IT company where I am today. But now, I'm confronted with limits. The company is small, and the possibility to work on new projects is limited. Your company offers bigger opportunities. Just as I've always done in this job, I'll be able to accept bigger responsibilities, improve my skills, and apply my new knowledge to help your company create better programs. These story statements aren't very long, about 140 words each, but they allow you to present your past, present, and future in an interesting way. Even if you didn't always dream of becoming a quality system manager or a business support technician, you've probably had experiences that connect your past to your present and to your future job that you want. You simply need to select the right experiences to tell your story. Why should we hire you? Because I'm the best? Because I'm motivated and dedicated to my projects? Because I have a solid track record of success. If you say any of these answers to the question, why should we hire you in a job interview, you can be sure the recruiter will think, so how can you answer, why should we hire you? You know you have all the right skills. You know you're motivated for this job. And yes, perhaps you're also motivated by the salary and the company's awesome social committee. But you can't exactly tell the recruiter that. The recruiter wants to know what you can bring to the company, something that the other candidates can't. So forget about any answer that mentions motivated, dynamic, autonomous, or hardworking, or any of that other fluff. So what can you say? Imagine you're applying for a job as a communications manager. We'll look at an outstanding response, and then we'll look at the structure. This way, you can adapt it to your own profile. Here's an excellent, unique response for a job as a communications manager. From my research, I know that brands are using content marketing much more than display advertising nowadays. While your company blog is quite good, someone with strong analytical skills can help you identify which articles bring in the most traffic and conversions. If you hire me, I'll use my data analysis skills to improve campaign measurements, identify where to focus your blog's content, and increase reader conversion rate. And here's the structure that you can follow. First, state a trend or a situation related to your field. Then, show that you've researched the company and identified a problem or an opportunity that they have. Third, say how someone with a specific quality can help solve that problem. Number 4, point out how you have this quality. Number 5, say how you'll use this quality to solve the problem that you mentioned. And finally, state the results that your action will achieve for the company. That's the exact structure that I followed for the example response, and you can totally adapt it to your own profile. This structure can make you feel confident about the clarity and the accuracy of your response. Of course, you'll have to do some homework and find how you can truly bring value to the company. So now it's up to you to do your research. Remember also, keep your sentences simple. Short, clear sentences will help you communicate confidently so that the recruiter will also think that your English level is another reason why they should hire you. What are your greatest strengths? It's one of those classic interview questions, just like, tell me about yourself. So, how do you talk about your strengths in a way that is concise and correct and that shows why you're the best person for the job? So, Mr. Dumont, tell me, what are your greatest strengths?
Well, I think I'm disciplined. I pay attention to detail. I like perfection. I work hard. I'm independent and organized too. Easy to work with, and I'm very friendly and humble.
Oops! There's a fine line between confident and arrogant. When presenting your strengths, always prefer quality over quantity. How? Choose 1, 2, or 3 strengths, no more. Also, try to choose strengths that correspond to the job you want. If you apply for a job as a human resources manager, highlight your ability to work with people. If the job includes a lot of client contact, highlight your communication skills. Don't just name the strength, support it with a story. This is easier than it sounds if you use short, simple sentences. They don't have to be complex to make a good impression. Let's look at an example response. I'm very organized even when there is a lot of work. This also helps me work well under pressure. In my last job, I had to manage several projects, and at the same time, I had to manage a crisis. The American team misunderstood our instructions and didn't complete a project correctly. During this time, I made sure to communicate the priority tasks and deadlines so that everyone could recover. And by carefully organizing the workflow, I helped the team recover without too much stress. And here's a structure that you can follow. First, answer the question directly. Second, add another related strength if possible and if you feel it's appropriate. Number 3, include a situation where you demonstrated the strength. Give an example. Number 4, describe what you did in the situation. And number 5, state the result of your action. Just to recap, answer the question, add another strength if possible, show an example where you demonstrated the strength, describe what you did in the situation, and state the result of your action. Although there's no universal, one-size-fits-all answer for this question, you'll feel more confident if you can create a structured response. The best way to prepare is to list a few strengths that correspond to the job you want. Then, imagine a story that illustrates how you demonstrated that strength in the past. And most importantly, Keep your sentences simple. Short, clear sentences will help you communicate confidently so that the recruiter will also think that English is one of your strengths. What are your weaknesses? Your negative traits, the dark side of your personality. Okay, just your professional weaknesses, that's enough. But seriously, if you have a job interview in English, let me help you talk about your weaknesses in English. It's not so bad, I promise. Wouldn't you love to be a recruiter? You can ask people all the bad stuff about them, and it's an interview, so it's like a perfectly normal question. But can you imagine that in the real world? Hey Ben, tell me, why should I not be your friend? Wait, where are you going? No, it's just a normal question. Ben? In a job interview, you don't have a choice. You have to answer the question because the recruiter wants an answer. Come on, tell me something evil. I'm dying to know. Weaknesses! So you need to have a prepared answer because the day of the interview, you don't want to be nervous and say something not very good, in fact. I don't know. I have a tendency to eat too much cheese, and sometimes my colleagues complain because it stinks. But I can't help it. I just love cheese. There is a very useful expression there. I have a tendency to. For example, I have a tendency to avoid confrontation. I have a tendency to take on more projects than I should. I have a tendency to procrastinate until the deadline approaches to really start a project. That's better. I mean, it's a better answer. Are they better weaknesses? Cheese, procrastination, cheese, Another useful expression. I know that I can work too hard and that I'm too dedicated to my job. I think I need to learn to be lazy sometimes. Yeah. So, what are your strengths? Oh, those are my strengths too. Horrible answer, but there are some good expressions. Be sure you use appropriate adjectives. For example, I know that sometimes I can be too controlling on projects and that I have to learn to delegate and trust others to do the job well. Or, I know that I'm sometimes too sensitive to criticism and that I have to learn that it's not personal. Maybe you're too assertive, too impatient, too shy in social situations. What adjectives describe your weaknesses? And a real weakness, not something fake, like I'm too dedicated to my job. But don't stop there. I know that sometimes I can be too impatient with new staff members, especially when they don't understand things quickly. What are you waiting for? Are you going to ask the next question? A recruiter wants to know your weaknesses, but more important, they also want to know what you're doing to improve. After all, no one is perfect. I mean, even if you are pretty awesome, you probably have some tiny weakness. I mean, really tiny. So talk about what you're doing to improve your weakness also. I have a tendency to eat a lot of cheese at my desk, and I know that it can bother my colleagues. So what I've started doing is waiting until after work to pig out on cheese. And it hasn't been easy, but I've been working on it. And as a result, I've improved my relationships with my colleagues. Or a more probable answer, I have a tendency to be too direct when I give feedback on a project. And I know that some people think that I'm being negative, which is false. So what I've started doing is researching ways to give constructive criticism in a diplomatic way. It takes practice, but I've been working on it. And I've seen a difference in the way that people react when I give feedback. So you see, it's not so difficult to talk about your weaknesses in English. Imagine you have a job interview in English soon. You've prepared your questions with my course, Get the Job. You've practiced your answers and you feel pretty confident. But did you think about the small talk? That's right. Even in an interview, your ability to make small talk plays a big role in the interviewer's impression of you. What should you say? And what should you not say? That's what you'll learn today. If you think small talk has no place in a job interview, let me share some research with you. In a study of 163 job interviews, researchers found that pre-interview small talk made a significant difference on the result of the interview. I'll put the link to that study in the show notes so you can read it yourself. And small talk gives you a chance to make a good impression. Plus, you show that you're a nice person to work with. And we all like working with nice people, right? Maybe the interviewer wants to make friendly chit-chat, small conversations before jumping into the big questions like, tell me about yourself and what are your biggest weaknesses, for example. Often the interviewer will start with, how are you today? Don't just say fine and then stop talking, because that creates awkward, uncomfortable silence. You're expected to elaborate a little, to give some more details. Say something about your day, or the trip to get to their office, or how excited you are to be there. Here are a few ideas. Good, it's been a good day so far. I had a productive morning, so yeah, everything's good. Another one. Oh, fine, thanks. The traffic was smooth getting here, and it was easy to find your office, so far, so good. Or another one. I'm good, thanks. I've been looking forward to this interview for a while, so I'm happy to finally be here. Keep it positive. You don't want the interviewer to remember you as the person who complained all the time. If you have the habit of complaining about train strikes, the bad weather, or how tired you are, please go watch the lesson, How to Answer, How Are You? It seems like a basic question, but I see students who mess this up all the time. Think of it as your first interview question and prepare it. Sure, weather is a very common small talk subject in everyday conversations where your aim is not necessarily to impress the other person. But if you have the chance to meet an interviewer, use every moment to convince them that you're the right person. Every other candidate will probably talk about the weather, just because it is kind of the basic small talk conversation. But you're smarter than that, and you're going to stand out because you actually thought to prepare the small talk before the interview. And here's one technique that will have a much higher impact. If you know who will interview you, it's easy to find their LinkedIn profile and learn a little about their interests. You can then casually mention the thing that you have in common. Maybe you saw they posted an article about, women in technology. And earlier that week, you read an article on how Washington, D.C. is America's top city for women in tech. Drop this casually into the conversation if you have an opportunity. For example, earlier this week I read an article about how Washington, D.C. has a lot of women in the tech industry there. I didn't know that. Did you? Maybe you saw that your interviewer does a specific sport like jogging or yoga or something like that. And you could also mention that in your response to how are you? Something like, oh, I'm good. Yeah, I went jogging for 30 minutes this morning, so I'm feeling good. And that's another easy way to make a quick connection. And your interviewer will be pleasantly surprised to learn that you have a shared interest. And we all like people who share our interests. Job interviews are stressful, and job interviews in English are even worse. How can you be sure to answer the question clearly? What if you don't have the vocabulary? There's a simple way to structure your responses to your questions in job interviews so that you can be clear and concise, even in English. Interviews almost always include competency-based questions. The objective of these questions is to learn about your skills that the new job requires. Competency-based questions often start with, tell me about a time when, or describe a situation where you. Tell me about a time when you had to manage an international team. Describe a situation where you had to manage a conflict with a client. This may sound very simple, but it can be very easy to give a long, unstructured answer. Doing a job interview can make you lose your bearings, and you risk forgetting key details or just ending your response with a weak, et voilà. To avoid this and to have a greater chance of impressing the recruiter, use the STAR acronym to structure your response. It really will make you look like an interview star. Here's what STAR stands for. S, situation. Give the context of your story. T, task. Say the action you needed to take or the solution you needed to find. A, activity. Describe the action you took. R, result. What happened in the end as a result of your action? Let's imagine the recruiter says to you, tell me about a time when you had to save a project that was going very badly. Here's an example response to this question. Notice the STAR structure in the response. A time when I had to save a failing project? Well, last year our department started working on a project. but we didn't have enough resources to complete the project. It looked like it was going to be a disaster. As project manager, it was my responsibility to find a solution to save the project. I suggested that we reduce the number of meetings and work on a collaborative platform instead. I also suggested that we divide the tasks between mini teams. This increased our productivity because we didn't lose 4 hours a week in discussions. In the end, we finished on time with the limited resources we had. The response is clear, well-structured, and it responds exactly to the recruiter's question. Just a few tips about using star structure in your responses. Be specific. Talk about precise projects, figures, and successes. Don't give vague or general answers. Be really specific. Keep your answer short. 1 or 2 sentences is sufficient for each part of the answer. Remember, recruiters are probably interviewing several people, so it may be difficult for them to concentrate on long answers with too many details. While preparing for the interview, imagine probable questions and create a stock of answers you can use. This will help you feel confident and prepared for your job interview in English. All right, now you are more prepared to get the job in English. But if you want to go the extra mile, to get some coaching, to practice what you learned, get feedback and corrections from an expert, and feel extra confident and increase your chances of being hired, contact me about job interview coaching. And we can start quickly, so even if your job interview is very soon, we'll see what we can do to help you. My contact information is down below the video. And if you want to take the next step with me right now, watch this video about how to succeed in interviews over Skype and Zoom. And really, if you're doing a job interview by video conference, you really must watch that video to be prepared. So click over there to continue, and I'll see you in the next lesson.